deafening silence swept across the Jomo Kenyatta International Stadium in Mamboleo, Kisumu. Thousands stood shoulder to shoulder, eyes fixed on the skies, hearts beating heavy as the familiar hum of a military chopper broke through the morning air. Even before the aircraft touched down, a wave of emotion engulfed the crowd. Wails pierced through the silence, vuvuzelas bled in sorrow and pride, and branches were lifted high into the air as if waving farewell to a legend. This was not an ordinary day in Kisumu. This was the day Raila Odinga, Baba, finally came home. At exactly 7:30 a.m., the Kenya Air Force aircraft, a Leonardo C-27J Spartan bearing the call sign Enigma 01, landed at Kisumu International Airport. The name itself, Enigma, a tribute to the man who had shaped Kenya's democracy, inspired generations, and defied odds at every turn. It had carried his body from Nairobi's Lee Funeral Home, accompanied by a military escort and top state officials. As the aircraft taxied to a halt, a ceremonial water salute from the Kenya Airports Authority's fire unit marked the solemn arrival. The national's flag, draped over the casket, fluttered lightly in the morning breeze, a symbol of honor, legacy, and unfinished dreams. At the tarmac, government officials and family members stood silently, heads bowed. Interior Principal Secretary Dr. Raymond Omolo, Kisumu Governor Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, and Senator Professor Tom Ojienda led the receiving delegation. Moments later, the flag-draped casket was transferred to a waiting National Intelligence Service chopper, the final link in the journey of remembrance. The chopper rose slowly, its blaze slicing through the humid Kisumu air, heading towards Mamboleo Stadium. Back at the stadium, the crowd had been waiting since dawn. Some had camped overnight in the rain, refusing to leave their spot. By sunrise, the 1,500 capacity dome tent at the center of the field was surrounded by the tens of thousands of mourners.
In political arena, Raila was solid. Wanasiasa wote wezi fikiria Raila. Raila alikuwa juu. He is a statesman. Ukiona kifaa Raila sahi, he is a statesman. Kwa political is disrupted. Tusidanganyane, imekuwa disrupted. Sahi ODM as a party, we have a large gap. Hatujui tutafanya nini. Baba was there, but in ODM politics, sisi tulilegea. But kifaa Raila imeniuma sana, siwezi sema.
A raised platform carpeted in national colors stood ready. Security was airtight. KDF soldiers, national police, and county enforcement officers guarded every gate, every path, every seat. Large LED screens around Kondele and the CBD streamed the moment live for those who could not access the stadium. When the chopper finally appeared above the horizon, the reaction was electric. The chants of Baba, Baba erupted across the field. The sound of vuvuzelas drowned out even the rotors of the aircraft. Mothers wept openly, young men saluted, elderly women knelt in prayer. It was a moment frozen in history.
Za mwisho kwa kiongozi wetu. Mwenyezi Mungu ameona ni vyema Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga aweze kutangulia mbele za haki, na inshallah mimi na wewe siku moja tutaweza pia kuelekea kule. Kwa hivyo jinsi Mama Aida aliweza kukariri jana kule Nyayo, nitaomba wananchi wazalendo wa Kisumu tuweze kuomboleza baba kwa njia ya heshima na amani. Tafadhali.
As the chopper landed, soldiers quickly formed ranks around the landing zone. The casket, still draped in the Kenyan flag, was lifted gently and placed on the platform at the heart of the stadium. A military band played a slow, mournful tune as the crowd fell into a hushed silence. This was no longer a political event, it was a collective farewell.
Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga aweze kutangulia mbele za haki.
The body of Raila Odinga will lie in state at the stadium for public viewing throughout the day before its final journey to Bondo, Siaya County. On Sunday, a state funeral will follow, an event expected to draw dignitaries from across Africa and the world. By mid-morning, Kisumu had transformed into a city of stillness and sorrow. Traffic had stopped, business had paused, and the air was thick with grief and gratitude. Along the streets, residents waved flags, held portraits of Baba, and sang songs from his campaign trails, songs that now sound like eulogies. Yet amid the sorrow, there was pride. Pride in a man who, through decades of struggle, had given meaning to the world resilience. A man who fought for democracy, endured detention, and never lost his belief in a better Kenya. As the sun rose higher, the reality began to settle. Raila Odinga had finally come home, not for a rally, not for a campaign, but for rest. The cameras panned across the teary faces of mourners. Some whispered prayers, others simply stared. For them, this was more than a farewell. It was a chapter closing on an era that defined Kenya's political soul. Kisumu stood still, and the name that echoed across the city, Baba. Newsroom, Maisha TV, Reader Kering Chibet.